My name is Alyssa Morgan. 3 months ago, I died. At least, that's what the doctors told my family. They said my brain was gone, that I'd never wake up. And they were right about my body. Because when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the hospital. I wasn't even in my own skin. I was standing in my twin sister Isabelle's bedroom, staring at her reflection. Her face, her voice, her heartbeat. And somewhere miles away, my real body was lying lifeless in the ICU. Everyone thought I was gone. And my twin? She wasn't at the hospital grieving. She was missing. And the truth is, she wasn't just missing by accident. My name is Alyssa Morgan. And 3 months ago, the world decided I no longer belonged in it. That's not me being dramatic. That's what the doctors told my family. That's what the machines beeped into their ears. That's what the neurologist whispered when he thought no one else was listening. They said I suffered a catastrophic diffuse axonal brain injury. They said the swelling in my head was so severe I had no meaningful neurological response. They said I would not wake up. And then, the part that shattered my parents. They said my brain activity was gone. Gone. As in, the part that makes you you. Wiped clean. Silenced. Extinguished. A body without a person. But here's the thing. They were wrong. Dead wrong. Because I did wake up. Just not in my own body. I need to take you back, before the crash, before the tubes and machines, to the truth that nobody ever believed except me and the only other person who lived it. My twin sister, Isabelle. We weren't just close. We weren't just twin telepathy close. We were connected in a way that felt unnatural. Not spiritual. Not magical. Something deeper. Something woven into the marrow of our bones. It started when we were kids. I'd scrape my knee climbing a fence. And Isabelle would cry, even if she wasn't anywhere near me. She'd wake up from a nightmare about drowning. And I'd feel water filling my lungs. We'd come downstairs with the same bruise on the same spot of the same leg. Mom would laugh and call it just a twin thing. But it wasn't. Not when we were 10 and I fainted at school. Only to learn Isabelle had broken her wrist at the exact same time across town. Not when we were 14 and both passed out from the same sudden, stabbing headache. Doctors said it was stress. Teen hormones. A coincidence. But what doctor can explain two people sharing the same dreams? The same nightmares? The same memories? Memories that didn't belong to one of us, but somehow belonged to both. We never talked about it outside family. Because it scared people. Because it scared us. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened the night of the accident. The last thing I remember is rain. Sheets of rain hammering the windshield so hard it sounded like cracking glass. The kind of storm where headlights smear into long white streaks. The kind of storm where the world feels blurred and hostile. I remember a curve in the road, one I normally never take. I don't even know why I was there. I just know I was driving fast, trying to get home, trying to escape a conversation I never got to have. Then, headlights. Too bright. Too close. Coming toward me at the wrong angle, the wrong speed. For a second I thought they were floating. Then came the slam. Metal twisting. Glass exploding. My body thrown sideways like a rag doll. Pain, sharp, electric, shot up my spine. Then silence. Not peaceful silence. Drowning silence. Like sinking into black water, deeper and deeper, until even the surface light disappears. I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. There was no montage. No childhood memories. No regrets floating through my brain. Just falling. Endless falling. And then, a jolt. Like being yanked upward. A gasp. A breath that wasn't mine. And suddenly, standing. Standing in a room I recognized instantly, but only because I'd been inside it hundreds of times. Isabelle's bedroom. The air smelled like her lavender candle. The curtains she always tied in perfect knots were swaying. Her phone charger dangled halfway off the nightstand. Her bed was unmade, like she had left in a hurry. And across from me, the mirror. Her mirror. Except the reflection staring back at me wasn't mine. Brown hair instead of my dirty blonde. Green eyes instead of my dark brown. Isabelle's face familiar, yet sharper than mine. Her frame, slender, tall, graceful. Her slack jaw. Her widened eyes. Her trembling hands. My mind. Her body. I blinked. She blinked back. I reached up, pressing my palm to my cheek, her cheek, and felt the warmth of flesh that wasn't supposed to be mine. I whispered, "Hello." And her voice, Isabelle's soft, smooth voice, came out of my mouth. That's when the truth hit me in one cold wave. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a hallucination. This wasn't a coma vision. I was alive. In the wrong body. I spun around the room, panic blurring everything. Where was Isabelle? Where was my body? Was she still alive? Was I? Was this some kind of afterlife glitch? I tore through the house. Her house, our house growing up, but now hers alone since college. Kitchen empty. Living room empty. Back door locked. Shoes at the door, the pair she always wore. Gone. Her car keys, missing. Her phone gone. No note. No sign she'd left willingly or unwillingly. The world outside was quiet, too quiet for the disaster I was living. So I did the only thing that made sense. I went to the hospital. Walking into the ER wearing her face felt wrong. Like impersonating someone who wasn't dead but wasn't present. Like stealing something intimate. Nurses recognized me, recognized her. They said things like, "Oh, Isabelle, sweetheart, we're so sorry. Are you holding up okay? Do you want a private room with your sister?" My stomach twisted each time. My sister. Myself. Both accurate. Both lies. I kept my head down, barely speaking, trying to mimic her walk, long strides, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted. When I reached the ICU, my breath caught in my throat. Because there she was. Me. My body. Unmoving. Tubes snaking into my mouth. Bruises blooming across my face and chest. Head bandaged. Machines breathing for me. Mom sat beside the bed, clutching my limp hand and whispering prayers she hadn't said since we were kids. Dad sat stiffly in the corner, eyes red, staring at the floor like if he looked up, he'd break apart. And then, there was Ethan. My boyfriend. Except the way he leaned over my body, my lifeless shell, wasn't grief. It was guilt. I heard him whisper, voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to choose. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this." Choose? Choose what? Choose who? Me? Her? Both of us? The world tilted. My Isabelle's heartbeat thundered in my ears. I backed away before I could hear more. Before I passed out. Before I screamed. Whatever happened that night. Whatever brought me to that road. It wasn't an accident. Not anymore. Not after hearing him. Not after waking up in the wrong body. Not after realizing my sister, my twin, was missing. And that I wasn't sure she wanted to be found. The hardest part about waking up in my twin sister's body wasn't the shock. It wasn't the confusion. It wasn't even the fear of not knowing where my real body was or what had happened to me. It was the silence. A silence that didn't belong to the hospital, but to Isabelle. She was nowhere. Not answering her phone. Not at the house. Not in any of the places she usually ran when she needed to think. It felt like she had evaporated from the world. And I was left behind wearing her skin. At first, I told myself it was a dream. Some vivid, unhinged, medically induced hallucination. But then I would reach up and touch her hair softer than mine, longer. Or I'd hear her voice when I whispered something higher, smoother. Or I'd catch my reflection accidentally in a window and see her flinch, not me. Every reminder chipped away at the denial until all that was left was the truth. I wasn't dreaming. I was trapped. And the life I'd stepped into wasn't mine to live. I spent hours sitting on Isabelle's bed, staring at the little details that made her who she was. The pillow she always slept with, crushed into a crescent. The stack of half-read books by her lamp. The faint scent of her coconut shampoo lingering on the sheets. Her handwriting on sticky notes stuck to the wall. "Don't forget to breathe. Tomorrow is the only day you can change. Call Mom." It was like being surrounded by her ghost. A ghost who wasn't dead. Just absent. And the worst part? She hadn't left me even a breadcrumb to follow. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I had to do something. Every minute I wasted could be the minute Isabelle needed me. Or the minute Ethan did something unforgivable. Or the minute my real body, rotting in a hospital bed, slipped away for good. The thought alone made my chest tighten. Isabelle's heartbeat hammered behind my ribs, too fast, too loud. I wasn't used to her body. Her pulse. Her breath. Her height. Her strength. Her weakness. Existing inside her felt like wearing a dress tailored for someone else, beautiful but suffocating. Still, I had to act. So I borrowed her jacket, grabbed her keys, and stepped into her world. The hospital felt colder the second time. It wasn't just the air conditioning. It was the weight of carrying a secret nobody would ever believe. I walked through the sliding doors trying to mimic Isabelle's posture, shoulders back, long strides, chin up. She always had this graceful confidence I never managed to pull off. People noticed. Nurses nodded at me. Doctors murmured her name. One woman from housekeeping even offered a soft, "Stay strong, honey." Every word hit with the force of a punch. Because they weren't talking to me. Not really. They were talking to a body I was borrowing. I kept my head down, hurrying toward the ICU. The moment I stepped inside my room, Alyssa's room, my legs nearly gave out. My body looked worse than it had before. Skin pale. Lips cracked. Bruises blooming across my collarbone and jaw. Hair matted against the pillow. My chest rose and fell only because a machine forced it to, if I looked at myself long enough. I didn't even recognize me. I was a stranger. A ghost. A shell. Something in my throat tightened painfully. Mom was curled up in the chair, holding my limp hand between hers, whispering softly. Dad stood behind her with a hand on her shoulder, staring at me with this vacant desperation. They looked exhausted. Broken. And seeing them grieving for me while I stood right there was torture. I wanted to scream. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm not gone. But to them, I was Isabelle. To them, I wasn't the daughter who died. I was the daughter who survived. I swallowed the scream and stepped closer, slowly, quietly. My mom glanced up at me, at Isabelle, and her face crumpled. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, voice trembling. "You don't have to stay long. You've been here every day. Go home and rest." Her hand reached out to squeeze mine. Instinctively, I squeezed back. Too tightly. She froze. "Isabelle, are you okay?" I forced myself to nod. Because how could I explain? How could I tell her the truth without sounding insane? I pulled my hand back gently, then stepped around the bed toward Ethan. He didn't notice me at first. He was staring down at my face, Alyssa's face, with this warped mixture of grief and panic. His hand brushed the side of my cheek, thumb tracing the bruises. "I'm sorry," he whispered again. I didn't know how to choose. Choose. There it was again. The word that didn't belong in mourning. The word that suggested guilt. The word that made my stomach turn. I backed away quietly before he could look up and see the suspicion in my eyes. I didn't trust myself not to scream at him. Not yet. Not until I understood what he meant. Not until I found Isabelle. I left the hospital with my chest tight, my skin buzzing like electricity ran just under the surface. The world outside looked the same, but it felt wrong. The leaves on the trees rustled too loudly. The cars driving by seemed sharper, brighter. Every person who walked past me felt like they were staring through me, like I was glowing. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe trauma. Maybe the universe trying to shock me awake. Or maybe I was never supposed to be in this body at all. Maybe something had gone so wrong that reality itself felt crooked. I didn't know. All I knew was that I had to go home. The house was too quiet. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, breathing hard. My thoughts were spiraling. Isabelle missing. Ethan acting guilty. My accident not making sense. My consciousness waking up inside her. None of it fit together. And the more I tried to force the pieces into place, the more I realized something was missing. Something Isabelle would never leave behind. Her diary. She wrote in it every night religiously. No matter how tired she was. No matter how late it was. A piece of her soul was always inked into those pages. And if she was in trouble, if she was scared, if she was hiding something, it would be there. I tore her room apart. Drawers, closet, under the bed, behind the books on the shelf. Nothing. I was ready to give up when I noticed a seam on the bottom shelf of her dresser. A tiny gap where wood shouldn't have separated. I pressed my fingers against it, and the drawer's bottom lifted. A false panel. And underneath it, her diary. Black leather cover. Worn edges. A broken spine from being opened too many times. My heart pounded as I flipped through it. Pages and pages of handwriting, her handwriting about life, school, stress, our parents, me, her hopes, her fears. And then names. One name repeated more than any other. Ethan. I felt sick. Entry after entry describing how she didn't mean for it to happen. How she didn't want to betray me. How Ethan kept telling her it was right timing. How he insisted it wasn't wrong if it was meant to be. My hands shook as I turned page after page. The betrayal burned, but I kept reading. Until I reached an entry dated the night of the accident. The ink was darker. Like she pressed harder. Like her hands were shaking. If Alyssa finds out, she'll never forgive me. Ethan says he's ending things with her tomorrow. But the guilt is eating me alive. I need to talk to her. I'm going to tell her everything, tonight. Tonight. The night of the accident. My breath hitched. My accident. Her meeting. The wrong road. The wrong time. The wrong person in the car. A cold chill ran down my spine. Because the more I read, the more one horrifying question dug into my mind. Was I even the one they meant to hurt that night? There are betrayals you expect in life. Friends who drift. Promises people forget. Small lies that protect someone's ego more than they protect you. But nothing prepares you for finding out the two people you trust most have been loving each other behind your back. I don't think there's a clean way to describe the feeling. It's not just heartbreak. It's disorientation. Like gravity stops working the way it's supposed to. Like the world tilts under your feet. Like someone rewrote the story of your life when you weren't looking. And as I stared at Isabelle's diary, reading the truth spelled out in her handwriting, I felt myself slipping. Not physically. Mentally. Emotionally. Existentially. Because here I was, alive inside the body of the person who betrayed me most. And mourning myself inside the body I no longer had. The weight of it all pressed down on my chest until I could barely breathe. But the worst part? The diary wasn't the end of the lie. It was the beginning. The next 3 days were a blur. I didn't sleep more than an hour at a time. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the headlights coming toward me again. Heard glass shattering. Felt the weightlessness of impact. Smelled gasoline and rain. Every nightmare ended with Isabelle's voice screaming my name. Sometimes it sounded like a warning. Sometimes like an apology. Sometimes like a plea. But she never appeared. She was still gone. And every hour she remained missing made the air around me feel tighter, like the world itself was shrinking. On the third morning, I was halfway down the stairs, exhausted and numb, when someone knocked on the front door. A soft knock. Then a second. Then, I swear I stopped breathing. A voice whispered through the crack. Isabelle, please. I need to talk to you. Ethan. My stomach twisted so sharply I had to grip the railing to stay standing. My heart, Isabelle's heart, raced in my ears, drowning out everything else. He knocked again, pressing his forehead against the door like he was praying. Isabelle, please open up. I brought you flowers. I need you to talk to me. His voice cracked on the last word, and anger shot through me like lightning. Flowers. He brought flowers. For her. Not for me. Not for the girlfriend in the hospital. The girlfriend he'd been ready to discard. My hand tightened around the railing until my knuckles went white. I wasn't ready to face him. Not like this. Not wearing her skin, not with her voice tangled in my throat. So I froze. Silent. Still. Dead to him, like I'd been declared at the hospital. The knocking eventually stopped. Minutes later, through the window above the stairs, I watched him walk to his car, shoulders slumped. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly the veins in his arms bulged. Face twisted, conflicted, drenched in guilt. Then he pulled out his phone. Typed something. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted it again. Finally, he slammed the phone down and drove away. The silence he left behind was louder than the knocking had been. I didn't cry at first. I was too numb. But later, sitting in Isabelle's bed with her diary on my lap, something in me snapped. The sobs came suddenly, violently, ripping out of my chest until my whole body shook. Not just grief for myself. Not just anger at Isabelle. But grief for the connection we once had. The bond that once felt supernatural. Now broken. Bent. Dirty. Hard to look at. I wasn't just living in Isabelle's body. I was living in Isabelle's sins. And drowning in them. Hours passed. Maybe more. Time didn't work right in that house anymore. Everything felt stretched, smeared, distorted. Then something strange happened. A memory surfaced, only it wasn't mine. It was Isabelle's. I could feel it. A flash of Ethan's hand brushing her cheek, their fingers intertwined, her heart fluttering with guilt and excitement. A kiss in his car. A whispered promise. A secret they kept buried like a landmine. The memory made me jolt so hard the diary fell off my lap. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't an imagination. It was her memory. Like a shard of her mind drifting through mine. I clutched my head, trying to breathe. This connection we'd always shared. This strange, painful link we couldn't explain. It wasn't gone. If anything, it was stronger. Maybe because I was in her body. Maybe because she was out there somewhere, alive or terrified or hurt. Maybe because something was pulling us together or ripping us apart. I didn't know. But I knew I had to keep searching. And that meant reading the diary front to back. Even if it destroyed me. The entries grew darker the further I went. At first the relationship was accidental. Late-night study sessions turning into confessions. Confessions turning into touches. Touches turning into, I didn't mean for this to happen. But then the tone shifted. Ethan wasn't just affectionate. He was possessive. Jealous. Manipulative in ways I'd never noticed. Isabelle wrote. He says he loves me more than he ever loved Alyssa. He says I'm the one he was meant to be with. He says if Alyssa knew, she'd ruin everything. Another entry. He told me last night that twins are just duplicates, and he chose the right one. It made me sick to hear. I'm going to end things. And then the darkest one before the night of the accident. Ethan is unpredictable. I don't feel safe telling him I want to stop. He said things tonight that scared me. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I turned to the entry from the night of the crash. The final one before Isabelle vanished. If Alyssa finds out, she'll hate me. Ethan says he's ending things with her tomorrow. I don't believe him anymore. He looked angry tonight. Like I betrayed him by wanting to tell the truth. I need to talk to Alyssa before something terrible happens. I feel like I'm being followed. If anything happens, it won't be an accident. My entire body went still. That last line hit me like a sledgehammer. It won't be an accident. My accident. My crash. Wrong road. Wrong time. Wrong person in the driver's seat. Something inside me broke in that moment. Something small and fragile that had held onto the hope this was all coincidence. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't fate. This wasn't some supernatural twin glitch. Someone wanted Isabelle gone. And I got in the way. The realization left me trembling. What if the crash wasn't meant for me? What if I took her place in the crosshairs? What if someone had been following her that night? What if I wasn't supposed to survive? My breath shook as I grabbed my phone. And then, as if the universe was trying to push me over the edge, a notification appeared on the lock screen. Isabelle's phone was still synced to her iCloud. And someone had tried to log into her email. 3 times. Unsuccessful. At 3 a.m. A chill ran down my spine. If someone was trying to access her accounts, they were looking for her. And if they were looking for her, they could be watching me now. Watching her body. Watching the wrong twin. I rushed to the window, peering out into the dark street. A car was parked 2 houses down. Engine off. Windows tinted. No movement inside. My heart pounded. Was it someone innocent? A neighbor? Or someone waiting for me to step outside? I backed away slowly, shutting the curtains. Fear had a taste. Metallic. Sharp. Electric. It filled my mouth. I knew then. I wasn't just living in Isabelle's life. I was living in her danger. And the only way out was finding her. Before whoever wanted her gone realized the truth. They missed. People think fear hits you like a wave. Instant. Overwhelming. Crushing. But real fear, deep fear, the kind that rewrites the way you see the world. It doesn't crash into you all at once. It drips. One detail. One discovery. One whisper of truth at a time. Like dye spreading through water. You don't realize everything's changed. Until the whole world is tinted with dread. That was my life now. Every second I was awake in Isabelle's body, a new question surfaced that made the previous one look small. Was the accident an accident? Was Isabelle the real target? Was Ethan involved? Was someone following her? Was someone still watching me now, thinking I was her? It was a spiral with no bottom. And the only way to stop falling was to find answers. So I went back to the beginning. To the night of the crash. To the road I should never have been on. The drive felt wrong. The entire time I was gripping the steering wheel, Isabelle's heart hammered in my chest like it wanted out. Her body remembered something. Even if I didn't. The sky was clear now, sun breaking through the clouds, birds on telephone wires, but the road still felt haunted. Rainwater had dried in long streaks down the pavement, like scars that hadn't healed yet. I parked at the curve. My curve. The place where everything had ended for me and begun for whatever I had become. Silence settled around me like fog. Then I saw them. 2 sets of tire marks. My heart stuttered. One set, wider, matched the tires on my car. The skid patterns were unmistakable, stretching across the asphalt in frantic, jagged swerves. The second set was narrower, longer, cleaner. They curved in a deliberate arc, following my car, then veering off just before the guardrail. I crouched beside them, fingers trembling as I traced the grooves. Someone was behind me that night. Not just behind. Following. Close enough to be dangerous. Close enough to be intentional. A shiver slid down my spine. The diary entry echoed in my head. I feel like I'm being followed. This was real. Isabelle hadn't been paranoid. Someone had been following her. But that meant I wasn't the one they wanted. The truth hit me so hard my knees weakened. I was in the wrong place. At the wrong time. In the wrong body. Because someone expected Isabelle to be behind the wheel. Someone expected Isabelle to die. But I got there first. I took the impact meant for her. The thought left me nauseous. I forced myself up and walked along the shoulder, scanning for anything else. Glass, broken pieces, skid debris, anything the police missed or ignored. 30 feet from the crash site, something glinted in the dirt. A small, silver object. I picked it up. A phone charm. A tiny metal feather with Isabelle's initials on it. I remembered when she bought it. She said it was lucky. Said she felt protected when it dangled from her phone. But now it lay broken, half buried in the mud. Meaning her phone was with her that night. Meaning she was using her phone when she disappeared. Meaning whoever she was meeting or trying to avoid was close. Too close. A cold realization tightened around my chest. If Isabelle had been running. If she'd dropped something. If she'd been taken. Then she might still be alive. Somewhere. In danger. And I might be the only one who could find her. I needed help. But I couldn't go to the police. How was I supposed to explain waking up in someone else's body? Or knowing things I shouldn't know? Or seeing memories that weren't mine? They'd lock me in a psychiatric ward before I finished the first sentence. No. This was something only I could solve. But to do that, I needed to understand one thing. What exactly had Ethan been hiding? I went back through Isabelle's diary again. Slower. Word by word. Phrase by phrase. And this time I saw something new. Small notes in the margins. Dates. Times. Initials. One stuck out. 11:14 p.m., behind me again. Another. Same car. Same headlights. He says it's a coincidence. And then. He wants to meet tonight. I don't trust him. I think he's angry I told him I'm confessing to Alyssa. I stared at the last line until it blurred. If I don't go, he'll just follow me anyway. My hands went cold. Ethan didn't just betray me. He didn't just manipulate her. He stalked her. He followed her. He terrified her. I sucked in a shaky breath, heart racing. If Ethan was following her that night, if he knew she planned to tell me the truth, if he was afraid she'd end things with him and ruin his chances with either of us, then what wouldn't he do? The possibilities twisted my stomach. But there was something else. Something darker. When I'd overheard Ethan whispering to my unconscious body at the hospital, he'd said, I didn't know how to choose. Choose. Between me and Isabelle. The realization hit me like a fist. He didn't just want Isabelle. He wanted both. And if he couldn't have both, he'd take the one he thought he controlled more. I couldn't sit in the house anymore. The walls felt too close. The air too heavy. I drove to the only other place that made sense. The old Overlook. A place Isabelle always went when she needed space. When she felt overwhelmed. When she had hard truths to face. The view stretched over the entire town. The river. The bridge. The highway like a vein running through the valley. I stepped out, breathing the sharp, cool air. A memory rose in my mind. Not mine. Hers. Isabelle standing right here, clutching her phone, tears in her eyes, whispering. I don't know what to do. Her fear slammed into me like a physical force. My breath hitched. The connection between us had always been strange, but this was different. Stronger. Sharper. Like her emotions still lingered in her body, in her bones, and I was living inside them. For a moment, I closed my eyes. And something shifted. A flash of headlights. Rain on the windshield. A voice shouting her name. A hand grabbing her wrist. Her body twisting away. Running. Running. Then darkness. My eyes snapped open. I stumbled back, gasping. That wasn't my memory. It wasn't imagination. It was a fragment of hers. A moment she experienced. A moment she survived. A moment she escaped. Which meant Isabelle didn't die. She ran. She got away. She's still out there. The realization was so powerful I said it out loud. She's alive. My voice shook in the cold air. She's alive. But if she was alive, where was she now? A sudden gust of wind rattled the trees to my left. My whole body tensed. A dark figure stepped out from behind a parked truck. I froze. It took a second for the face to come into view. When it did, my blood ran cold. Ethan. He stared at me, at Isabelle, with an expression that was hard to read. A mix of desperation, relief, and something else. Possession. He stepped closer. I knew you'd come here, he said quietly. You always do when you feel guilty. My mouth went dry. I'm not. I caught myself. I couldn't slip. Not yet. He moved closer. Too close. Why haven't you answered my calls? He asked, voice trembling. Why are you avoiding me? Why are you acting like you're afraid of me? Because I am. Because Isabelle was. Because you might have tried to kill one of us. But I stayed silent. Frozen. Watching. He sighed, frustrated. Alyssa is gone, he said. My stomach twisted. And now, we can be together. Finally. His hand reached toward me. Not gentle. Not loving. Claiming. I stepped back instinctively. His eyes darkened. What's wrong with you? He whispered. Why are you looking at me like that? Like you don't know me? Because you don't know who I am. Not anymore. Not ever again. I took another step back. And another. His expression cracked, something fragile shattering. Don't walk away from me, he said softly. Then louder. Don't walk away from me. He lunged. I ran. Heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Legs burning. Breath tearing out of me. I didn't look back. Not until headlights washed over me from the main road. A car screeched to a stop. My mother's voice shouted my sister's name. Isabelle. Ethan froze. Just for a second. Then he bolted into the trees and vanished. My parents rushed to me, gripping my arms, pulling me toward the car. I was shaking so violently I could barely speak. I took a breath. A deep one. And for the first time since waking up in Isabelle's body, I told them everything. Not the small version. The whole truth. Waking up in her body. My body being brain dead. Isabelle's diary. Ethan stalking. The crash site evidence. The feeling of being followed. The memories in my head that weren't mine. The belief Isabelle was still alive. They didn't question it. Not once. Not for a second. Because deep down, they had always known there was something different about us. Something unexplainable. Something beyond science. Something that tied us together. If Isabelle was out there, I would find her. And if Ethan was behind this, I would expose him. But I was wrong about one thing. Ethan wasn't the only danger. Someone else, was hunting my sister. And they were about to close in. There's a kind of terror that doesn't make you scream. It steals your voice before you get the chance. It's the kind that seeps into your bones, slow and cold, until every breath feels heavier than the last. That was the terror I felt after Ethan lunged at me, after he chased me, after he whispered that now we could finally be together because Alyssa was gone. Because even though I was standing there in Isabelle's body, trembling, gasping for air, I was Alyssa. And the person Ethan wanted wasn't Isabelle the way he pretended. It was the version of her he thought he could control. But the most terrifying part? I knew he wasn't working alone. There were footprints at the crash site that didn't match his. There were tire marks from a car that didn't belong to him. And Isabelle's diary mentioned a he, but never said it was Ethan by name. There was someone else. Someone watching. Someone following her. Someone who wanted her gone. And that meant one thing. If Isabelle had escaped the night of my accident, she wouldn't go somewhere public. She wouldn't go to a friend's house. She wouldn't go to the police. She would hide. And she would hide smart. The question was where? Step 1. Find her phone. Isabelle was addicted to that thing. Not in a social media way. In a safety way. It was her lifeline. Even when she was overwhelmed, anxious, or angry, she never let it out of her sight. So if she left it behind, or if it was taken, that was a map to her fear. I grabbed her laptop, the one still synced to her cloud, and opened the Find My app. At first, nothing appeared. My stomach dropped. Then, a blinking dot flickered to life. Not at home. Not near the crash. Not in the city. Deep in the woods, miles from the nearest road. Beside it was the name. Isabelle's iPhone. Still online. Still active. Still somewhere. A surge of adrenaline hit me like electricity. I grabbed my keys and ran. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. There are kinds of quiet that feel peaceful. This wasn't that. This was the heavy, listening kind. The kind that makes twigs snap louder, shadows seem deeper, and every breath echo in your ears. The abandoned cabin was nearly swallowed by trees. The wood was weathered and cracked. Windows boarded. Roof sagging inward. A place forgotten by everyone. Everyone except Isabelle. I approached slowly, my footsteps crunching on leaves loud enough to make me wince. The door wasn't locked. It creaked open with a slow, aching groan. Inside, the air was stale and cold. But there were signs of life. A half-empty bottle of water. A makeshift sleeping area. A sleeping bag on the floor. A flashlight. An empty snack wrapper. And a jacket slung over a broken chair. My breath caught. I knew that jacket. She wore it during college orientation. Oversized olive green, with a tear on the sleeve she never fixed. Isabelle had been here. Recently. My heart raced, not with fear, but hope. Then I saw something else on the floor. A notebook. Not a diary, but a small, battered journal. I picked it up and flipped to the first page. Her handwriting. Shaky. Uneven. Not like her usual neat script. My hands trembled as I read the first entry. If someone finds this, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. I can't go home. I can't go to the hospital. I can't let him find me. Him. Not them. Not people. Not Ethan. Just him. One person. One threat. One shadow she feared more than everything else. I swallowed hard and kept reading. He knows I'm going to tell Alyssa everything. He said he just wants to talk, but I don't believe him anymore. Not after the way he grabbed me last time. A chill slid down my spine. Grabbed her. My hands clenched around the journal. Entry after entry painted the picture of someone terrified, desperate, alone. She wrote about being followed. About headlights behind her every night. About someone knocking on her window. About someone calling her name when she knew she was home alone. And then, the entry dated the night of the accident. He's angry. I can see it in his eyes. I told him tonight that I'm done. That I'm telling the truth. He said if I walk away, I'll regret it. I don't think Alyssa is safe anymore. I need to tell her now, tonight, before he finds us both. My breath hitched. Before he finds us both. Not one of us. Both. A loose page was folded into the back of the journal. I unfolded it carefully. Another entry, scrawled hurriedly. If Alyssa shows up instead of me, she's in danger. He doesn't care which of us gets hurt. He just wants control. My entire body went numb. The pieces were falling into place. The wrong person died in the accident. The wrong twin. Just like I feared. The headlights behind me weren't random. They were following Isabelle's car. Not mine. Someone chased her. Someone forced my car off the road thinking she was driving. Someone tried to kill her. And now that Isabelle was missing, they might come after me again. Because they thought I was her. I closed the journal with shaking hands, my mind spinning. Isabelle was alive. She had been hiding. Terrified. Running. And she might still be nearby. I stepped outside the cabin, heart pounding in my throat. The forest felt different now. More threatening. The trees were too still. The branches too heavy. The air too dense. I pulled up the Find My map again. The dot had moved. My stomach dropped. Isabelle's phone location was no longer at the cabin. It was moving slowly down a trail deeper into the woods. Someone had the phone. Someone was close. Too close. I took a step backward, scanning the trees. A sound echoed through the forest. A twig snapping. I froze. Another snap. Closer. A figure emerged through the trees. I backed up until my spine hit the cabin wall. A silhouette. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Slight limp. For a second, I thought it was Ethan. But when the figure stepped into the light, I saw the face. And it wasn't him. It was someone I didn't recognize. Someone older. Rugged. Weathered. Eyes sharp and cold. And in his hand, Isabelle's phone. He looked at the screen. Then up at me. And smiled. No emotion. No warmth. Just a smile that said, "You're exactly who I was looking for." My blood went cold. "Isabelle," he said, voice low. "You shouldn't have run." I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. I turned. And ran. Branches tore at my arms. Roots snatched at my feet. My lungs burned. Behind me, heavy footsteps thundered through the forest. He was fast. Too fast. And I was trapped in a body that wasn't mine. A body I didn't fully understand. A body that wasn't built for how terrified I was. I stumbled, hands scraping against bark, breath wheezing. But then, headlights flashed through the trees. A car engine roared. And my father's voice shouted, "Get in." I sprinted toward the sound, heart exploding in my chest, legs shaking uncontrollably. The forest floor behind me rattled as the man slowed to a stop, only feet away, but didn't follow past the tree line. He stood there, watching, silent, still holding Isabelle's phone, like he was waiting for me to come back, waiting for the next chance. I dove into the car and slammed the door shut. My mother grabbed my hand. My father sped down the dirt path without looking back. My whole body shook uncontrollably. My voice finally broke free. I think I just found who was chasing Isabelle. My parents didn't speak. Not until we hit pavement. Not until the woods were far behind us. Not until the danger felt miles away. Then my mom finally whispered the question we were all afraid of. "Alyssa, if that man had Isabelle's phone, then where is she?" I swallowed hard. Because I knew the answer. The truth settled in my chest like a stone. "Still out there," I said. "And still alive." My mother's eyes filled with terrified hope. But running out of time. There's something surreal about fear. It doesn't fade with time. It waits. It hides behind your ribs, quiet and patient, until the moment life slows down, and then it lunges. That's what happened the night we escaped the forest. My parents kept glancing into the rearview mirror as though they expected that man, the stranger with Isabelle's phone, to burst out of the trees and chase the car on foot. He never did. But the fear followed us home anyway. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, shaking so hard the cushions trembled beneath me. My mother kept making tea she never drank. My father paced until the carpet wore thin beneath his steps. And all I could think about was Isabelle. She had been alone, terrified, hunted. And I was the one who led the hunter right to her hiding place. I felt sick. My thoughts spiraled in circles. Why was he following her? What did he want? Was he working with Ethan? Did he think I was her? But the real question, the one clawing at my insides, was the most haunting of all. Where was my sister now? I didn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. The smile. The limp. The phone in his hand. I jolt awake gasping, unsure if I heard a twig snap outside or just imagined it. By sunrise, my nervous energy had finally turned into something sharper. Determination. I couldn't wait anymore. I needed answers. And the first thread to pull, the easiest one, was Ethan. Because whether or not he was the man in the forest, whether or not he knew how deep this went, he was still connected to Isabelle's disappearance. The diary proved that much. So before my parents woke, before the sun was even fully up, I grabbed Isabelle's phone chargers, a hoodie, and her car keys. But as I stepped into the garage, my father blocked the doorway. "You're not going anywhere alone," he said. Not angry, just scared. "I have to," I whispered. "You don't." "I do." He studied me for a long moment, then sighed and tossed me his spare car keys. "Fine. But take my car," he said. "Not hers." I didn't argue. I slid into the driver's seat, adrenaline thrumming under my skin, and started the engine. Ethan lived only 15 minutes away. But my heart took the scenic route, asterisk asterisk. Every red light felt like a countdown. Every car in the rearview made me flinch. Every turn felt like a mistake that couldn't be undone. When I pulled onto a street, the world felt too quiet. His house was a small brown two-story with a porch swing and garage full of unused gym equipment he bought during lockdown and never touched. Nothing dangerous. Nothing threatening. Just painfully normal. That alone set my nerves on fire. Because evil didn't always wear masks or lurk in shadows. Sometimes it drank protein shakes and said it loved you. I didn't go to the door. Instead, I texted him from Isabelle's number. "We need to talk. Now. Come outside." No 3 dots appeared. No typing bubble. I thought maybe he was asleep. Then the door flew open so hard it slammed into the wall. Ethan stepped outside instantly, shirt half-tucked, hair messy like he hadn't slept, eyes wild and frantic. Not groggy. Not confused. Just waiting. Like he'd been pacing for hours, staring at the door, hoping I'd knock. He scanned the street until his gaze locked on me sitting in the driver's seat. His whole expression changed. He lit up. Like seeing Isabelle was the best thing that had happened to him in months. My stomach twisted. He jogged toward the car and slid into the passenger seat without waiting for permission. "Alyssa is gone," he whispered the moment the door shut. No greeting. No hello. Just that. Those words. Like they were rehearsed. His eyes glistened with something I couldn't name, love or madness, I wasn't sure. "And now," he breathed, "we can finally be together." Like we were supposed to. My blood ran cold. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "How long?" I whispered. He blinked. "What? How long were you lying to me? How long were you seeing Isabelle behind my back?" His smile faltered. But only for a moment. Then he reached out and brushed a strand of hair, her hair, behind my ear. "We made a mistake," he murmured. "She and I, we shouldn't have happened. But I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I didn't want to lose you." "You didn't want to lose control," I snapped. Something in his eyes flickered. Not guilt. Annoyance. "Where is she, Ethan?" I demanded. His face tightened, jaw clenching. "She doesn't get to come back," he said quietly. "She made things too complicated." My pulse spiked. "What did you do to her?" He laughed. Actually laughed. Like I'd told a joke. "I didn't do anything," he said, leaning back. "She ran. Like she always does." I stared, unsure if he was lying or telling the truth. But then he added, "She wasn't supposed to be in the car that night." My breath stopped. "What?" He turned to the window, voice low. "She wasn't supposed to be in the car." Cold swept through my limbs. "Then who was?" I whispered. He didn't answer. But his silence was the answer. My stomach dropped. Ethan, I said slowly. That wasn't Isabelle driving. It was me. His head snapped toward me so fast I flinched. For the first time, fear flashed across his face. Pure fear. I thought you were. He cut himself off. His voice went hoarse. Isabelle never listens. I swallowed hard. You tried to kill her, I whispered. He lunged suddenly, reaching across the center console, grabbing my wrist with breathless desperation. No. I tried to keep her, he hissed. She was leaving. She was going to blow everything up. She said she'd tell you. I couldn't let that happen, not after everything we built. He squeezed tighter. Too tight. Pain shot up my arm. She made me choose, he shouted, voice cracking. She forced me. My fight or flight instinct exploded like fireworks. I shoved him back with all my strength and yanked the door open. He grabbed at my hoodie as I scrambled out. My throat tightened. Mom squeezed my hand. And for the first time since the accident, since the hospital, since waking up in Isabelle's skin, I didn't feel alone. Not completely. But deep down, one truth weighed on me heavier than all the others. Whoever that man in the woods was, whoever was helping Ethan, they weren't finished. Because they still believed Isabelle was missing. And they still believed I was her. Which meant they were coming back. And this time, they wouldn't make a mistake. There's a point where fear stops feeling sharp. It dulls. It settles into your bones. It becomes the background noise of your life, quiet, constant, like the hum of an engine you can't turn off. That's what the next 2 weeks were like. A slow-burning dread. Not enough to make you scream, but enough to keep you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, waiting for footsteps outside your window. Because Ethan was out there. And the man from the woods was out there. And Isabelle, my real sister, was still missing. Every day, my parents and I searched for her. We drove every back road, checked every abandoned building, talked to every gas station clerk, hiker, and truck driver who might have seen her. We even put up flyers. Missing person. Name, Isabelle Morgan. Age, 22. Last seen, unknown. But it felt wrong. Not lying wrong. Existentially wrong. Because every time I looked at that poster, I saw my own face. My identity inside her body had become something I lived with day by day. But seeing my face described as missing made my stomach twist. It was a reminder that nothing about this was normal. Not my life. Not my body. Not the bond between us. And definitely not the way Isabelle could still reach me. Even now, the dream started small. A whisper. A flash of light. The sound of running water. Branches overhead. A cold hand. Her hand. But each night, the images got clearer. A creek. A moss-covered rock. A fallen tree with bark peeling like paper. The smell of wet soil. The metallic taste of fear. Then, on the 13th night, the dream wasn't a dream. It was a memory. Not mine. Hers. I woke up gasping. Cold sweat clung to Isabelle's, my borrowed, skin. My breath was sharp and shallow. And I knew exactly where Isabelle was. Not a street. Not a location on a map. But a place. A feeling. The forest. The same forest from the cabin. But deeper. Near water. Mom, I shouted, stumbling into the hallway. Mom, I know where she is. My parents were awake instantly. My mother's eyes widened with a mix of hope and dread. Where? Dad demanded. I don't know the exact spot, I said, breathing hard. But I saw it, I felt it. There's a creek near a fallen tree. She's there. She's hurt. I think she's unconscious. They didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Within minutes, we were in the car, driving toward the state forest. The sun wasn't even fully up yet. Orange light barely touched the horizon. But adrenaline made the world feel wide awake. Searching the forest again felt like déjà vu. Only this time, the fear was heavier. We weren't searching for clues. For items she left behind. For journals or jackets or footprints. We were searching for her. Her body. Her breathing. Her heartbeat. Her life. I held the image from the dream in my mind, replaying it like a movie as we pushed through thick brush and over fallen branches. The forest was silent except for our footsteps and the distant rush of water. After nearly an hour, I spotted something familiar. A slanted tree. Bark peeling in long strips. Just like in the dream. This way, I called. I moved faster, branches whipping against my arms, breath sharp in my throat. The sound of the creek grew louder. My heart pounded harder with each step. Isabelle! I screamed. My voice echoed through the trees. No response. I scanned the ground, panic rising. Isabelle! Please answer me. My parents called out too, shouting her name into the forest. Still nothing. Then, Dad pointed. His voice trembled. There. My mom gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. And my knees nearly buckled. Because lying beside the creek, half hidden by brush and leaves, was Isabelle. Her real body. Her real face. Bruised. Pale. Still. Her hair tangled with dirt. Her clothes torn. Her lips cracked. Her breaths barely visible, thin, shallow, almost non-existent. She looked like she'd been there for days. Maybe longer. My chest tightened painfully. Isabelle, I whispered, falling to my knees beside her. Her eyelids fluttered faintly at my voice. And in that split second, that brief flicker of life, I felt something inside me shift. Something warm. Something deep. Something ancient. Like two magnets pulling toward each other. Familiar. Inevitable. Our bond. It was waking up. I grabbed her hand. It was ice cold. Hold on, I whispered. I'm right here. I never left. My parents were already calling an ambulance, voices shaking. Dad's hands trembled as he lifted her gently, supporting her head. Mom kept stroking her hair, whispering, "You're okay. You're okay," over and over like a spell. We carried her to the trail, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. The ambulance siren cut through the quiet woods minutes later. Paramedics rushed toward us, lifting Isabelle onto a stretcher, checking her pulse, wrapping her in blankets, hooking her to oxygen. Everything became frantic motion. Hands. Voices. Lights. But I didn't move. Not until they asked who wanted to ride with her. My mom stepped forward. I did too. And for a terrifying moment, I didn't know which one of us they'd choose. Because on the outside, I was her. I was Isabelle. And technically, I was her sister too. But before anyone could speak, Mom said, "Let her ride. She's connected." The paramedics seemed confused, but they didn't argue. They opened the back doors of the ambulance and helped me inside. I sat beside Isabelle's stretcher, holding her cold hand. And that's when it started. That warmth. That pull. Stronger than in the forest. Stronger than anything I'd felt. It dragged at my consciousness. Not painfully. Just naturally. Like falling asleep in your own bed. Like sinking into warm water. Like going home. I realized what was happening seconds before it overtook me. My breath caught. "Wait," I whispered. "Not yet." But the pull didn't listen. My vision blurred. The ambulance lights smeared into streaks of red and white. My hands tingled. My chest tightened. My skull vibrated with pressure. And then, the world collapsed inward. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the ambulance. I wasn't in the forest. Or the hospital. Or anywhere familiar. I was staring up at white ceiling tiles. The smell of antiseptic filled my lungs. Machines beeped steadily around me. I tried to move, and felt something stiff tug at my skin. A tube. Another tube. A needle in my arm. And when I tilted my head, I saw a face. Not Isabelle's. Mine. My real face. In the reflection of a metal monitor. My chest rose and fell. Slow. Heavy. But alive. I was back. Back in my original body. Back where I belonged. My breath hitched painfully as I lifted my hand. It responded sluggishly, weak, trembling, but it responded. I looked to my left. And my heart clenched. Isabelle was lying in the bed beside me. Her eyes were closed, oxygen mask over her face, but her chest rose and fell steadily. She was alive. Still unconscious. Still fragile. But alive. I turned my head fully, tears flooding my eyes. Her hand was resting on the edge of her bed. I reached out with every ounce of strength I had. Our fingers touched, and a spark shot between them. Not literal electricity, not visible, but unmistakable. A pulse, a connection, a bridge. Like the gap between us had closed again. Like the universe had snapped back into place. My mom burst into the room then, tears spilling down her cheeks. My dad followed, eyes wide with shock and joy. "You're awake," Mom whispered, grabbing my hand. "So is she," Dad added, voice trembling. And for the first time since the accident, our family wasn't broken. Not by betrayal. Not by lies. Not by fear. Not by whatever supernatural thread tied my soul to my sister's life. We were whole again. Bruised. Shaken. Exhausted. But whole. I closed my eyes, gripping Isabelle's hand tightly. And in the dark behind my eyelids, I swear I felt her squeeze back. Just once. Just enough. To let me know she was still there. Still fighting. Still connected. Still mine. Hospitals have a strange quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not comforting quiet. The kind that settles over you like a heavy blanket, muffling your thoughts, slowing your heartbeat, forcing your mind to wander into dark corners. That's the quiet that filled my room in the hours after I woke up in my real body again. After the paramedics wheeled Isabelle into the room beside mine. After my parents cried until their faces were flushed. After the doctors rushed in and out, checking vitals, adjusting machines, saying words like miraculous and unprecedented. But when the chaos finally stopped, when the sun began rising outside the window, when my parents stepped out to speak to a doctor, the quiet lingered. And for the first time since the accident, the real accident, I realized something. I might be back in my own body, but nothing was over yet. Not the danger. Not the mystery. Not the shadows following my sister. Not the truth. Especially not the truth. Because Isabelle was alive. But she hadn't woken up. Her chest rose and fell slowly beneath the hospital sheets. 4 lines looped from her arm. The heart monitor beeped in a soft, steady rhythm. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Like a storm waiting to break. I reached for her hand, my real hand, weak and thin, but finally mine, and wrapped my fingers through hers. "Come back," I whispered. "We're not done." Her eyelids fluttered faintly. Just once. And I knew. She heard me. The police came before noon. 2 officers stood at the foot of my bed, one older with a stern expression, one younger with nervous energy. My parents sat beside me, protective shadows on either side. "Miss Morgan," the older officer said softly, "we need to ask you some questions about Ethan Hart." Just hearing his name made my stomach tighten. "What happened?" I whispered. The younger officer exchanged a glance with the older one. Then he said, "He turned himself in." The room tilted. My breath caught. "Turned himself in?" I repeated, barely processing. "Yes," the officer said. "He walked into the police station at 6 this morning. He was distraught. He confessed to following Isabelle the night of the accident. Confessed to threatening her. Confessed to chasing her car." A cold wave washed over me. "He said he didn't mean to force her off the road," the officer continued, "but that he was, his words, overwhelmed and needed her to understand." My father's jaw clenched. My mother's hand tightened around mine. But the officer wasn't finished. "He also mentioned another man," the officer said. "Someone he claims was helping him. Someone who was supposed to keep an eye on Isabelle." My breath stopped. The man from the forest. The one with her phone. The stranger who smiled like he already owned us. "Do you know who this man is?" the officer asked. "No," I whispered. "But he's dangerous." "We believe that too," the officer said. Ethan only referred to him as the Watcher. He claims he doesn't know the man's real name. Says they met online in a support group forum for... He hesitated. For jealousy issues. Even the officer looked disturbed saying it out loud. Ethan said this man encouraged his obsession. He continued quietly. Fed it. Amplified it. So Ethan hadn't been acting alone after all. My heart sank. "What about Isabelle?" I asked. "Did he say where she was? Did he hurt her?" The officer shook his head. He said she ran from him. that she escaped the night he chased her. He claims he didn't see her again. I didn't know whether to believe him. Ethan was a liar. Manipulative. Obsessive. But the fear in his voice during our confrontation had been real. He hadn't expected me, Isabelle's body, to still be alive. He hadn't expected anything to go wrong. He had lost control, and people like him couldn't handle that. We've placed a protective detail outside your room and your sister's, the officer added. Until we locate the man Ethan described. A chill crawled down my spine. For the first time since waking up, the danger felt real again. Present. Close. The officers took our statements slowly, carefully, letting me rest between questions. I told them everything. The journals. The cabin. The man with the phone. The tire marks. The chase. The threats. Everything. When they finally left, the room felt heavy again, but this time, not with fear. With relief. A small, fragile kind of relief. Like cracking open a window after a storm. But the truth was still out there, waiting. Isabelle woke up 3 days later. Slowly. Gently. Like returning to the world piece by piece. First a twitch of her fingers. Then a flicker of her eyes. Then a soft, raspy sound that could have been my name. I was in a wheelchair beside her bed when she stirred again. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her gaze drifted across the ceiling. The window. Her foreline. Then landed on me. Her lips trembled. Alyssa? Her voice was barely audible. I nodded, tears already blurring my vision. She stared at me like she wasn't sure I was real. Like she was afraid to blink and make me disappear. I thought you died, she whispered. I thought you did too, I choked out. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Two matching faces. Two matching souls. Two hearts that had been torn apart, then stitched back together in ways neither of us understood. Then she whispered the question that had been sitting between us like a shadow. Did you feel me in your dreams? I froze. She knew. She knew I had been inside her body. Just like I felt her when I was unconscious. Yes, I whispered. I think we're connected. More than before. She closed her eyes and exhaled shakily. I felt you too, she murmured. I felt you looking for me. Calling me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I was dying, she said softly. And then, I felt you pull me back. We cried then. Not just from fear or relief. But from something deeper. Something ancient. Something supernatural. Our bond wasn't just emotional. It was real. Physical. Spiritual. Unexplainable. And unbreakable. Ethan's trial came 2 months later. By then, Isabelle and I were both home. Healing. Recovering. Relearning how to exist in our own skin. We sat together in the courtroom, side by side, hands interlocked. Ethan looked nothing like the boy I once loved. Nothing like the charming college senior who carried my books and kissed my forehead. He looked small. Nervous. Hollow. He didn't look at us. Not once. His lawyer tried to argue temporary insanity. Mental break. Emotional crisis. But the evidence was overwhelming. The journals. The messages. The cabin. The chase. His confession. When the judge read the verdict. Guilty. Attempted murder. Stalking. Endangerment. Conspiracy. Ethan finally looked at me. Not Isabelle. Me. Alyssa. His eyes were full of something I didn't expect. Not anger. Not regret. Fear. Like he finally realized, oh, I hadn't died. I had survived. I had beaten him. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison. But even as they led him away, I couldn't shake the thought. He might not have been the mastermind. There was still the man from the forest. The stranger. The watcher. He was never caught. And that thought haunted Isabelle too. Especially at night. The aftermath changed us. Isabelle and I began therapy together. Then separately. Then together again. We rebuilt trust piece by piece. We talked about everything. The affair. The guilt. The fear. The connection. She apologized until her voice broke. I forgave her until mine did. And eventually, we were whole again. Not perfect. Not untouched. But stronger. Because we survived something impossible. Something the world would never understand. Something that still lingered between us like static electricity. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I feel it. A tug under my ribs. A warmth behind my eyes. A hum in my bones. And I know it's her. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes sadness. Sometimes just a passing emotion she doesn't say out loud. And sometimes I close my eyes and see flashes of her perspective. Her hands. Her room. Her face in the mirror. Like I'm there. Just for a second. Two angles of the same moment. Two minds sharing one thread. A thread that didn't break the night we switched back. A thread that never will. And sometimes, when I'm alone, late at night, staring into the dark, I wonder if part of me never left her body. If part of her never left mine. If our souls aren't entirely separate anymore. If the crash didn't just break our lives apart, but fuse something between us forever. But whatever the truth is, I'm not afraid of it. Not anymore. Because I know this. I survived death. She survived being hunted. And together, there's nothing in this world or the next that can break us again. Not men. Not fear. Not fate. Not even death. We are two halves of the same story. Two bodies. One soul. And maybe, just maybe, that was our destiny all along.